Chapter 24, San Francisco Treat. One Crazy Summer by Rita Williams Garcia. Cecile didn't care where we went or what we did on Saturdays and Sundays as long as we stayed away from her peace and quiet. Our first weekend, we had played Go Fish and tic-tac-toe in our room and waited for Cecile to announce that we were going to some adventurous place that existed only in California. By the second weekend, I knew we had to have a plan. Since the sun rose high that Saturday, I figured it was a good day to go to the beach and collect seashells for souvenirs. Bonetta, Fern, and I had put on our bathing suits and sunglasses, and I'd asked Cecile to take us to the beach. I'd never spoken Martian to someone and had them give me the look that could only be given to a Martian. Instead of answering our question, Cecile gave us a look that said, "Who are you and what planet do y'all come from?" I ended up taking my sisters to the city pool, where we swam and splashed around without thinking about all that chlorine water knotting up our hair. When we'd come back to her house smelling like chlorine, I'd ask Cecile if we could use her hot comb to press our hair, seeing how naughty it got. I'd expected she'd say no outright because I'd smoke up her precious workplace with hair burning from the hot comb. In fact, I'd expected a no followed by an I didn't send for y'all in the first place. It hadn't occurred to me that Cecile didn't own a hot comb or a curling iron, even though that fact was as big and thick as her unpressed braids. She'd said, "Naughty? Your hair ain't naughty. It ain't misbehaving. It's doing what God meant it to do." That would have been news to Big Ma. We never entered the house of God without our hair pressed and smelling of Dixie Peach hair grease. For our third Saturday in Oakland, I had a better plan. I told my sisters we're going on an excursion. Miss Miriam Webster would have been proud. Excursion. To Vanetta and Fern's uncomprehending faces, I said, "We're taking a bus ride to our own adventure." It didn't make sense to fly 3,000 miles to the land of Mickey Mouse movie stars and all year's sun and not see anything but Black Panthers, police cars, and poor black people. I wasn't foolish enough to set out for Hollywood, Disneyland, or the beach where they filmed Happen in '68 with rock and rollers like Paul Revere and the Raiders. Instead, I planned that we'd spend our nearly last Saturday in California traveling across the bay to San Francisco to ride a cable car and see Chinatown, Fisherman's Wharf, and the Golden Gate Bridge. Now, that was an excursion worthy of a back-to-school essay. Even if we didn't have a camera to take pictures of us on our adventure, we would know we'd been there. I told my sisters, "Don't say a word, just let me do all the talking." Even though I knew Cecile didn't care, I didn't want her to suddenly take an interest in us and ask a lot of questions. If she asked questions, I'd have to spin a lot of straw, and I couldn't spin a lot of straw and look her in the face the way I'd like to. Like I'm 11 going on 12 and I know what I'm doing. "Cecile, we need money. I have an all-day activities planned and we have to eat while we're out doing our activities." "Yeah, gotta eat." I turned to Fern. "Don't say no more, Fern." She got it. "If I pour cereal for them before we go," I said, "I'll only need change for the bus and some lunch money and a little extra if you want us to gone long." Cecile almost raised an eyebrow, but not quite. She figured if we were up to something, but probably didn't want to know the details. She reached into her man pants and poured a lot of nickels, dimes, and pennies and some quarters into my hands. I needed both hands to get every coin. She dealt out 11 single dollars from a wad of bills and gave those also. I was so giddy about having all of that money, I just dumped it in my shoulder bag. I could sort it out later. Just by the weight of the silver and copper, I knew we had more than $15 I'd counted us on us getting. I ate my cereal and washed the dishes with my shoulder bag slung around my neck, Brooklyn style. The best way to lose your money is to hold your bag off the shoulder, but this way, the bag slung crossway, you were ready for anything. As we were walking out the door, excited about our excursion, Cecile called out, "I'm not coming down to no police station if you're out there stealing. Y'all have to spend the night in jail." That was as good a "be safe and have a good time" as we were going to get from Cecile. We took it and left. Outside, the yards and streets were filled with screaming kids playing. It was all I could do to keep Vanetta and Fern in line for my fully planned excursion. I had worked too hard, writing everything down to have them not want to go. I had asked Sister Pat about the bus and cable car. I had gotten all the sightseeing information from the library. I wasn't about to let a kickball game and some Barbie tea parties throw mile-long pouts on Vanetta and Fern because they wanted to stay here in Blackpool, Oakland. Then the worst possible thing happened. Hirohito came rambling up to us on his homemade go-kart. He skidded to a stop using high-top sneakers right at Vanetta's feet. She squealed and laughed and said, "What you know, Hirohito?" That was some cute thing she and Janice Ankton came up with. I was sick of hearing it. "Delphine, want to watch me fly down that hill?" "No," I said, while my sisters screamed, "Yes!" I glanced at my Timex. "Don't stand there watching Hirohito on his go-kart," it said. "The East Bay bus leaves in 12 minutes. You don't have time for that." Vanetta and Fern folded their arms and wouldn't budge. They watched Hirohito do that run and flop onto the flying T and go bumpity-bump down the hill. When he neared the end of the hill, he dragged his sneakers like Fred Flintstone and came to a full stop. Then he jumped up and turned to us, waving. Vanetta and Fern waved back. "Let's see him do it again," Vanetta said. "It's a boy going down a hill," I said. "We've seen it already. Let's go." I couldn't say it was thrilling how he jumped on that board and rolled down the hill, twisting the T left and right and then swerving it around. I couldn't say how I admired him for not crying about his father being in prison, or for trying to be a normal kid. If you wanted to call Hirohito Woods normal. I certainly didn't want Vanetta to get the wrong idea and think I was as stuck on Hirohito as she and Janice were, because I wasn't. He was just a boy, and I didn't want to miss the bus to our adventure. Our bus pushed out of poor and black Oakland, where lines formed for free breakfasts and men stood around because there were no jobs and too much liquor. We were glad to be going. Each of us looked out and off into the different directions, taking in all that we could. Finally, we were on our way to an adventure. I watched Fern, glued to the bus window, singing to herself. I wondered if she missed Miss Pattycake at all. How she loved Miss Pattycake long before she could walk. She teethed on Miss Pattycake's arms and legs, ate her hair when she didn't know better, squeezed her, slept with her, fed her, and sang to her. 7 years of loving Miss Pattycake, and now not one mention of her. I can study every move Fern makes and still not completely know her. There are just things I don't understand about her the way I understand Vanetta. About Miss Pattycake. After Miss Pattycake had been damaged and put away, I slept lightly, expecting Fern to awaken during the night, missing her true love. Not that I wanted Fern to be heartbroken. I didn't want her to love someone all her life and then not love or want them at all, even if her someone was a doll. That was no way to be. I wanted to say something to Fern, but then she cupped her hand around her mouth and squealed an "Oh!" like she'd seen something bad, like a naked lady running down the street. It was that kind of an "oh" squeal. What, Fern? Her eyes stayed big, her hand over her mouth. Vanetta and I kept going. What, Fern? What, Fern? She swallowed a gulp of air and uncuffed her mouth. I saw something. She said it again, and had gone from agog to being pleased with herself. I saw something. She clapped to the beat. Clap, 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 clap. No matter how much we asked, Fern shook her head no, clapped her hands, and sang her song. I saw something. Fern was pleased she had seen something. Vanetta was sure she hadn't seen a thing, and I remembered he had said Delphine. Delphine, want to watch me fly down that hill?